Hello, everyone. As I mentioned, this class is very different from other technology classes that you'll take. A lot of the classes that you take here at EAC and other places is about a task. It is about how you get something done. And all the information that you learn is to help you do that. For instance, in networking, you learn a bunch of networking concepts so that you can build networks and troubleshoot networks and update networks, right? It's a very focused type of course. Same with learning about PCs. In this class, you're not really learning those kinds of tasks. What you're trying to get, or one of the things that you're trying to get out of the class, is an understanding of technology and how technology is used, so that when you go to work, you're not just that one-dimensional person that can fix a network or upgrade a network, but you can prepare for what type of network you may be using in the future. And so we go through historically some people of interest that help create technologies that we use now that fundamentally have changed things. And it's important to do that so that we can understand how long does that take. For instance, when was the first hard disk or magnetic media storage created? How long ago was that? What were the processes that got it to the point that we use it now? That kind of perspective for someone that's in technology helps them to see a brand new thing that came in and know, is it actually brand new? Is VR new? How long has that been around? What are the key points to it being developed? And knowing those things, how long do I have before I'm going to have to actually implement that into my work or be asked to support it? Those things really help you be successful. It gives you an edge over other people that aren't thinking about it at all, and really will put you in a situation where they're like, hey, that guy's really smart because he was talking about this technology 3 years ago and we didn't even think about it, right? Trying to give you a leg up, trying to give you as much information as I can to help you succeed in your career. So in these kinds of assignments, you'll have a little test that will follow the video. I'm taking a little time in this beginning one to explain what's going on, but we're going to go through a couple of people that fundamentally changed things, and then you'll take a little test over it. Hopefully you see this as a way to really get some extra points, so to speak, or some good points, that it's not going to take you too long to go through these little videos and then go to take the test over it and get a good score. Having said that, let's go ahead and move on. So I'm going to share my screen and give you a little presentation. All right, here we are. We are starting off with a person called Tim-Linus-S, the creator of the World Wide Web, not the creator of the internet. Sometimes it is said that way on the internet. It is not. He did not create the internet. The internet was born around 1969, and that's a whole nother story. Tim-Linus-S came along and created the World Wide Web. He actually did create the World Wide Web in 1989, or at least he created the tools that we use in the World Wide Web. So what did he really do? All right, well, the early internet, pre-World Wide Web, pre-web browser, really looked like this that we see here on the screen. It looked like it's just text entry. You had to do everything command line. You had to type in where you wanted to go and know where you were going to go. In other words, you weren't going to pull up a big list of, hey, go over here or go over there. He wanted an easier, more powerful internet. That's what he wanted. And at the time, he was using a computer like this. This is a Next Cube, a Next computer, and that becomes important. So back then, the internet was navigating servers and directories. That's really what it was. It was, I'm going to go to this server and I'm going to go into this directory and I'm going to look at the files I need. That's a simplistic way of looking at it. So there's Tim. He was working at CERN, which is over in Europe, the big collider over there. CERN is a place where they do a lot of research. And he was on the internet, and back then it was available to government research groups, higher education, and not really a whole lot more. And really, if you were at the time, you would have thought the internet is really cool. I definitely thought it was cool, but it wasn't really helpful to me. It wasn't really something that I could get in there and use really well. It just because of the way it was organized, it was not super easy to do. Plus, it was very expensive to get on there. Anyway, he was using that next computer, and the next corporation was actually run by Steve Jobs, and it had something in it that was really, really beneficial. It used an operating system called the Next OS. And in that operating system, you could put in links within emails, within files that link to other files. So it wasn't actually the file. You'd click on that link and it would take you to that other location of a file on the computer or the file on a server. So that's a concept that he really took a hold of and was like, hey, why can't the internet be like this, right? I can create a Word document. They didn't have Word on there, but you could create a word processing document, put links in it, and somebody could get that document and click, and it would take them to the server where that document is. So much easier, right? Than actually having to say, this is where that document is, go to this location. They can just click there and go there. That was basically called hypertext back in the day. And he created something called hyperlinks. So what he did was he built HTTP, and that's the protocol that web pages use. So that's the server and client side program that displays that information. And he created HTML. That's the format or how you code a web page. So the pages are built with HTML. HTTP is what transfers that data back and forth. And so HTML allows you to create hyperlinks that go to other pages. And then he created a program to display those pages. And so we got, well, fundamentally, he creates the World Wide Web because this information he gives out for free. Gives out the program that displays the pages, gives out the information on how to make HTML pages, gives out the protocols so that you can run them on your server and run them on your client and make it work. So he creates HTML, hypertext transport protocol, and web browser. And in that complete package basically says, here you go, world, use it. Now, that's quite an invention to give away for free, but he really felt that the internet really needs to be an open place. And he also kind of felt that, well, if I make people pay me for this, it's not going to grow that rapidly and it may not get used, right? So he's really looking at, I want to revolutionize this. I want everybody to use it. And if I make it free, then there's a bigger chance everybody will. So he is now knighted. He is Sir Tim Berners-Lee. He's the head of a W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. And he believes in an open web. In other words, W3C is really devoted to not having a government or a company own it and own what you can put out there, which is really, really important, vital for free speech, right? Now, the next one we're going to look at is Linus Torvalds. And he was the creator of Linux. And notice the date on that is 1991. So we're dealing with 89 and 91. Those are really, really close. Now, what he was trying to do at the time was he was using computers that were very limited in power. We don't think of this now because it's not the same issue now. But way back in the 80s and 90s, you could not just sell a computer online and have somebody, and ship it over to Europe someplace. There was legal requirements that you had to have a facility there. So really, the only computers that were over in Europe were European built ones, Commodore machines, which were still really big there, Apple computers, and IBMs, like the real IBMs, not like a knockoff Dell computer or an HP. Those are what you could get. They were really expensive. They were expensive here. They're really expensive there. And so he's running on a 386 basically, and he's going to school and he's like, you know what, DOS just does not cut it. Well, for us over here by that time, right, we're dealing with pretty dang close to getting Windows 95. And there's a lot of other operating systems you can run. And so he basically says, you know what, I got limited computing power. I need a modern OS, not something that's like DOS and Windows 3.1. And there was modern OSs out there that he could have gotten his hands on, but the truth is that was probably hard for him to do, right? Because it's being sold in the US. And so he decides, I'm gonna build one. And so he made Linux from Unix. So basically looking at how Unix runs and how it operates. And was around for a very, very long time. It was very stable. And so it just makes sense. Let's make Unix run on my low powered computer. Now, big things that he did. He allowed anyone to improve it. He made it open source. He basically said, hey, I'm not the only genius in the world. No, he didn't say he was a genius. But he said, hey, I'm not the only person in the world interested in this. So if you see problems, go ahead and improve it and let me know and I'll take a look at it. He still does that today. That's exactly what he does as part of his organization today is approve that kind of stuff. But anybody was allowed to do it. Making it open source at that time that the internet is starting to explode meant that tons and tons of people who also wanted the same thing that he wanted just gave their time for free, right? So you're not an organization where you've got 20 programmers, you're a world organization that's got 200 programmers from just everywhere, and they're all improving it. So that was huge. Now, he didn't name it after himself, Linus, Linux. His friend actually put the code into a folder, into a directory on his Unix system. And he would usually take, the first 3 letters of somebody's name and combine it with UX. And to a geek, right? If you're looking at that kind of stuff on the internet back then, you would assume, oh, I'm running on a Unix server, that kind of thing. And so it becomes known as Linux because it's coming out of this Linux directory. He didn't actually name it after himself. And then Linus's first computer, which is important, we'll look at this much later, was a VIC-20. It was a Commodore VIC-20 that he learned to program on when he was like 13. So that's the main information about these 2 individuals. And also just noting that the internet predominantly runs on Linux. So when you're dealing with pulling off web pages off these different places, many systems run on Linux. It would be the predominant OS of the internet. The other 2 operating systems would be Unix and Microsoft Windows servers. And so it's really a combination of those 3 things. And Linux, of course, has been changed and modified, and there's all sorts of different distributions, but all of them go back to that one kernel